Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack will complete his tenure as the nation's second longest-serving Agriculture Secretary as the administration changes Tuesday. To begin our conversation, I asked how he thinks his 3 terms as U.S. Secretary of Agriculture will be remembered.
Well, I'm not sure how it'll be remembered, but I will tell you that it's been a great privilege and a great honor to work in this department with so many committed people who care so deeply about rural people in rural places. And I'm obviously proud of the work that we've done here. I think it's fair to say that over the last 4 years in particular, we've seen record farm income and record exports. But the reality is that not everyone has felt that they had a record year. And that's because of the nature of agriculture and the system that we set up, a production system that focuses on production. I think what we've done the last 4 years is we've created a new alternative, a new model that gives people a chance, if they are small or mid-sized operators, to basically have a series of revenue sources, new revenue sources. So I'm very proud of the work we've done with more and new and better market opportunities, both in terms of climate smart agriculture and what that's going to generate for producers in the future. They're going to get paid not just for what they grow, but also for how they grow it. It's going to create new opportunities for them to participate in ecosystem service markets where they will be paid for the environmental result that only they as farmers and producers can obtain. I'm really proud of the work we've done bolstering the local and regional food system where farmers can get a better shake. Excited about the work we've done on the competition agenda. As you know, we came into office, I think it was fair to say that the Packers and Stockyards Act, which is designed really to level the playing field for producers as they deal with integrators in the marketplace, it needed to be reinvigorated. So we hired additional people to do a better job of overseeing the Packers and Stockyards enforcement. It needed new partners, which is why we worked with state attorney generals to create revenue and resources for them to be able to make sure that the marketplace was operating fairly and appropriately. And it needed a bolstering of the rules and regulations. And we are proud of the fact that we created a new transparency responsibilities. As farmers go into business with integrators, they need to know a little bit more about the financial condition of those integrators. Very proud of the work that we've done in making sure that if there's discriminatory actions or if there are retaliatory actions against farmers and ranchers for exercising their rights, that they are now protected from such wrongful acts. And just recently enacting a rule that is essentially going to create a fair poultry tournament system, a system in which we're going to provide farmers with a bit more information about the nature of their responsibilities from a capital investments standpoint, making sure that the integrator can't basically change the deal after the deal's been made in terms of the various deductions and things that they've used in the past, making sure that there's not quite as much variability in the tournament system as there has been in the past, and making sure that producers have a better sense of the input requirements. So the competition agenda, also very proud of. So there's a tremendous amount of work that we've done to try to make it just a little bit easier, just a little bit better. If I had to summarize all of this, what I hope we've been able to do is I hope we've been able to make this conversation, the conversation between the older generation of farmer and the next generation of farmer, a little easier. It doesn't have to be the conversation of we just can't make it work. It can be the conversation of we are going to make it work, and there's opportunity to ensure that the next generation and the next generation gets to do what they love to do, which is to farm a ranch.
During the past 4 years, you focused a lot on the issue of climate and how farmers can benefit from addressing climate change, and secondly, on the challenges facing small farms and farmers of color. The incoming administration has made clear that they're going to roll back what this administration has done on both the climate and equity concerns. How confident are you that all your work on climate smart agriculture is going to last into the next administration and into the future?
Well, I think you have to distinguish between a focus on climate and the focus on creating opportunity for farm and ranches to be more profitable. I think the way we have set up the Climate Smart Commodity Initiative by contracting with major organizations, farm groups, commodity groups, major universities, major food companies, major agribusiness companies. These are contracts. These are enforceable contracts in which we've agreed to invest over a period of years resources to allow our partners to be able to then pay farmers to embrace climate smart practices. The fact that we've seen tens of thousands of farms sign up for these programs, and that number increases every single day, is a reflection of the popularity of this idea out there in the countryside. So I am confident that those contracts will withstand any challenge. I think the partnerships that we've created are partners that will be able to come into USDA and advocate with the new administration that this is not in their best interest to allow these contracts to be voided or rescinded, but that's actually in the best interest of farmers and ranchers for them to continue to receive payment for climate smart practices, continue to receive the premium that we're now seeing with over 40 to 45 products going into the stream of commerce with a value-added proposition, allowing farmers to take credit for developing sustainably produced food products. There's a market for this. There's a demand for it. Farmers are anxious to participate and receive the benefit. So I'm confident that that work will continue. I'm also confident at the end of the day that despite concerns that have been expressed about various laws that have been passed, when you're investing in conservation, when you're investing in a partnership with farmers, when you're investing in cost share that allows farmers to do what they need to do on their land, to make it more productive, to improve it, I'm hopeful that the administration will see the wisdom of continuing those investments. It's going to lead to healthier soil, cleaner water, more productivity at the end of the day. And again, it makes it financially just a little bit easier for farmers and ranchers. And I think regardless of party or regardless of which administration we're talking about, I would hope that we would see continued commitment from any administration, frankly, in the notion of conservation. It's something that's been bipartisan for quite some time, and I would hope that it would continue to be so.
And you've worked extensively on helping small and mid-sized farms during your tenure in office. How would you rate your progress on that?
Well, I think we've created the model. I think we've created the foundation. It has essentially two elements. It's the climate smart element, where we essentially are paying farmers for what they grow and how they grow it, and also opening up opportunities for them to be paid for the environmental result that they obtain on the farm by those who need that result to offset their own carbon footprint. I think we've certainly strengthened the local and regional food system effort by expanding processing capacity and literally hundreds of investments we've made there, creating new market opportunities with our local food purchasing and local school purchasing agreements that are operating in states across the country. And the reason that the local and regional food system is so important is it gives the farmer a better deal. When they go into the marketplace, generally when they sell their commodity, they get 20 cents of every food dollar that's spent at a grocery store. But when they sell directly to a customer, they get 50 to 75 cents of that food dollar. So it's a better deal for farmers. So we've created more opportunities. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've seen an increase in young farmers. It's one of the reasons why we've seen a reversal of the out-migration from rural America over the last decade or more. We've seen persistent poverty significantly reduced in rural areas. And I think we've seen that farmers now understand that there are multiple ways to keep that farm going. And I think we need to see the opportunity for this to continue. And if we do, I think as we talk about future farm bills, not the one that folks are currently working on, but future farm bills, we'll see, I think, an incorporation of this into a more stable, if you will, or more day-to-day part of what USDA does.
And you've been a strong advocate for addressing food insecurity. Can you tell us about your perspective on what must be included in a new farm bill, this upcoming farm bill, to adequately support Americans in the future?
Well, let's take a step back and actually ask the question, why do we do food assistance? What is the reason for it? I think one of the reasons, obviously, is that there are people that struggle in an economy. 80% of SNAP beneficiaries, the folks who receive the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, 80% of those folks are either senior citizens who have retired on a fixed income, likely a small Social Security check, but they've worked all their life, and they're struggling. Or there are people with disabilities who would love to be in the workforce, but can't, or if they are, they're working a very low-paid job. or folks who are actually in the workforce, who are working at a minimum wage job or a job that's slightly above minimum wage. So the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, in terms of who it helps, the vast majority of people that are helped are people that I think all of us want to help. There are roughly 20% of the folks who are able-bodied, who are required under the law to look for work or to obtain additional education, where their benefits are significantly curtailed and restricted. So the program itself is structured to help those who need the help and to require of those who are able-bodied to be looking for work or to be looking for education. Now, who else does it help? Well, it helps the grocery industry, obviously, because if more people have resources to go to the grocery store, that's exactly what they're going to do. So it supports jobs. It supports all those jobs and all those grocery stores around the United States and all of the jobs connected to the supply chain that put those groceries on the shelves to be purchased. What else does it do? Well, it also helps, by the way, to subsidize those low income and low wage paying companies and businesses. The service industry, for example, where the wages are not as high as they perhaps could be, where you basically not having a food assistance program, people had to survive on what they make. So it subsidizes, it provides help and assistance for those low wage industries. So when you look at the totality of what the SNAP program does, and it obviously creates a circumstance where our country is not confronted with people that are angry and upset because they're hungry or malnourished, it's a pretty good bargain, if you will. So I hope as people look at the totality of this, they understand the necessity of maintaining a strong commitment to nutrition assistance. And certainly excited about the work that we've done on children and child nutrition, whether it's the WIC program, which expands access to fruits and vegetables, which, by the way, helps those fruits and vegetable producers, those farmers who are producing those specialty crops, or the school meal rule, which is designed also to encourage more fruit and vegetable consumption and more whole grains, helping the producers of those products out, or whether it's the Sunbucks program, the summer feeding program that's now for the first time in 50 years a new nutrition assistance program designed to provide help and assistance during those months where kids aren't getting the free meal at school. So excited about this, and I think hopefully people see the benefit, not just simply looking for ways to cut budgets, but understand that there's a return on investment, if you will, that's pretty significant.
Rising food costs have been hitting consumers hard, including the price of eggs, which, as you know, has been impacted by the bird flu. What advice do you have for the next Secretary of Agriculture on what she should be watching for in terms of trying to further stop the spread of the bird flu?
Well, I think there are obviously a couple of important considerations. A continuation of the commitment that we've made in this administration to biosecurity. To the extent that we heighten, to the extent that we embrace and expand biosecurity so that we prevent the spread of HPAI, I think that's obviously one thing that's important, and I think there needs to be continued support for that effort. Secondly, I think it's obviously important for us to continue to indemnify, to protect, provide assistance and help to those facilities that are hit and who have to depopulate, because right now that's the only option that's available in terms of how to deal and cope and how to contain the virus. So that needs to continue. In terms of ultimately knocking this thing out, it's pretty tough to do when you consider that the source of it's wild birds. And they have certain migration patterns, which, by the way, are impacted and affected by climate, by temperatures, about weather conditions. So what we need to do is to figure out ways in which we can identify workable vaccines. We have vaccine today, but it candidly is just not workable. Here's why it's not workable. The current vaccine would require essentially poking little chicks or eggs multiple times in order to have the proper dosage of the vaccine. Well, that's one thing if you've got a backyard operation. It's something, again, if you have tens of thousands of birds that you have to manage. So we have to figure out a way of dispersing this vaccine in a way that is much more efficient. Secondly, we have to be able to distinguish between a vaccinated bird and a sick bird. Because if we can't distinguish, then it makes it very difficult for us to convince our trading partners that vaccination is going to work and also allow us to continue to trade in poultry. So we're working on trying to create some mechanism to distinguish the two vaccines, a vaccinated bird from a sick bird. And then finally, we need to make sure that we have vaccines that are effective not only for hens, but also for turkeys, so that we're in a position to utilize this vaccine for all types of birds who are being impacted by the virus. If we can figure this out, how to disperse, how to distinguish, how to expand access to the vaccines, then I think we can eventually get on the other side and eventually end the disruption of the egg-laying industry that ultimately results in higher prices for consumers.
The agriculture sector has faced numerous challenges over the past few years, from supply chain disruptions to natural disasters and the ongoing effects of climate change. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for ag in the years to come?
Actually, what we're talking about is that's agriculture. That is why agriculture is such an incredibly difficult and risky business, and why it's so hard, and why it's underappreciated by so many in terms of the risk and difficulty. I think we have to understand and appreciate the wide range of those who are participating in agriculture. It is not monolithic. It is not one size. It is not one crop. There are over 100 commodities that are grown and raised in this country of ours. There are producers in all 50 states. There are different weather conditions and different diseases and different pests and different risks associated in each region of the country. It could be wildfires in one area. It could be drought in another area. It could be flooding in another area. So we obviously need a structure and system that I think, first of all, creates enough profitability and opportunity for profit from a variety of different ways to minimize risk. If you have more revenue streams for farmers, then they aren't as dependent on a single revenue stream that could be disrupted if a supply chain gets impacted, or if a disease occurs and disrupts the ability to produce, or you can't grow because Mother Nature doesn't allow you to grow. So creating additional revenue streams, having a safety net that works, but a safety net that doesn't disproportionately work for some but not for all. I mean, right now, the challenge with American agriculture is that a relatively small percentage of farms do quite well in most circumstances. The top 10% of farms, 180,000 farms, they generate sales of more than $350 million regularly every year. They get 85% of the income, and they get 60% of the safety net. So it's really, they're in a circumstance and situation where, for the most part, they're in pretty good shape, even if there are challenges. But it's the other 90% of producers, the 1.7 million farms, that only have to share 15% of the income and 40% of the safety net, that struggle every year. It's why 88% of farm families in this country have to have off-farm income to be able to keep the farm. And I think the focus needs to be on creating more opportunities, particularly for the 90%. Why? Because they're the folks who populate and repopulate and continue to populate rural communities. They're the ones who have children that go to those rural schools and keep the rural schools open. They're the ones that are going to be shopping at the Main Street store that's owned by their neighbor and keeping that store open. They're the ones that are going to go to the hospital and create enough population to support a doctor and a decent hospital and clinic. So it's important for us to maintain and to expand population in rural places. To do that, you have got to have more attention paid to the 90% who are just working very, very hard to maintain the farm. If you do, not only do you have the benefit of healthier rural communities, I think also a more vibrant agricultural economy, more manufacturing opportunities in rural places, because you're converting agricultural waste into a variety of new products, including sustainable aviation fuel. And what you have is a larger pool of people to draw from for the military that disproportionately comes from rural places. So there's just a lot of reasons for us to really focus some more time and attention and resources on that 90%.
During your career, you've seen biotechnology in the industry evolve, and now we're seeing precision ag and AI provide additional opportunities for transformation. How do we continue to provide a regulatory pathway that enables quicker acceptance of those new technologies?
Well, I think that's one of the challenges, is trying to figure out ways in which we can streamline the process of government. It is complicated. It's a situation and circumstance where no single department can do things on its own. You mentioned biotechnology. Biotechnology has a number of masters, if you will, when it comes to the federal government. It has FDA oversight, it has EPA oversight, it has USDA oversight. And that's one of the reasons why we attempted to streamline that oversight, to make sure that everybody understood what their lane was and for them to stay in their lane so that you could streamline and reduce the amount of time. When I came into this job in the Obama administration, it used to take 90 months, 90 months, to get a biotech trait approved. I challenged the notion that it would take that long, and we eventually got it down, I think, to about 18 months. That's still too long, but certainly much, much better than 90 months. So I think it does take a concerted effort focusing on streamlining processes, asking what steps are absolutely necessary and what timelines are reasonable for those steps to be taken, and making sure that you have the adequate resources in terms of personnel. I think sometimes people think the simplest thing is to come in and substantially reduce the workforce at a particular department. Well, when you reduce the lawyers, for example, in a department, you're reducing the number of people whose job it is to review the rules and regulations that are being proposed. If you have fewer people reviewing those rules and regulations, guess what? It takes a little bit longer for those rules and regulations to be reviewed. So if it's about streamlining, then maybe one focus would be to make sure that you're maintaining the staff necessary to aggressively and in a timely way do what needs to be done. Now, some will say we don't need to regulate. Well, that's fine, except that we're working and living in a global economy where if we're interested in exporting agricultural products, we're going to have to explain to our trading partners the systems that we have in place to ensure that whatever it is we're selling is safe, that it's not going to create problems for their producers or for their customers. Well, that requires you to be able to prove that it's gone through a regulatory process. So I think it's important to streamline. I think it's important to look for adequate staffing. And I think it's also important to understand that there is still a reason and purpose for these regulations.
Agri-Pulse's founder, Sarah Wyant, covered your first official day in this building and in this office as Ag Secretary in January of 2009 at the beginning of the Obama administration. What was your initial vision when you took office in 2009, and how has that vision evolved over the years?
Well, no matter how much you study or how much you think your prior experience in whatever position you may have had before you become the Secretary of Agriculture, you don't know what you don't know. It's an amazing department. It's got an extraordinary reach. Many departments and many agencies in the federal government have a very deep portfolio, which is to say it's very focused. If you're the Energy Secretary, you're focused on energy. Now, there are different forms of energy, but you're focused on energy. If you're the Transportation Secretary, you're focused on getting people from here to there. When you're the Ag Secretary, you're focused on all of that. You've got an energy portfolio. You're investing in infrastructure and transportation. You're investing in nutrition. You're investing in food safety. You're investing in natural resources. You're investing in research. You're investing in universities. It is the broadest portfolio of any department of the federal government. And as a result, it is not fully appreciated, in my view, by the folks in Washington, D.C. in terms of its extent and length of its reach. 75% of the land mass of the United States is rural. 15% of our population, disproportionate number of our military, rural. Most of the energy sources and feedstocks for all the energy we consume, rural. Most of what we consume from a food production standpoint comes from rural. Most of the water we drink is impacted by rural. Our natural resources, our capacity to sequester carbon, substantial percentage, all of it in rural. It's a really important place. And so you don't know what you don't know when you come in. And as you stay in this business and stay in this department, here's what you learn. You learn that the portfolio is broad. you learn that the people who work here are incredibly committed. They care deeply about rural America and the people in rural America. And you also begin to fully appreciate and understand the contribution that rural America makes to the rest of the country. And then you become frustrated. You become frustrated because the level of support for the department is not commensurate with its responsibility. I've been trying to explain to people about the federal budget as if it was a large funnel. And I'll ask people, I'll say, where do you want to be in the funnel if you want to get your maximum amount of support? You want to be at the top of the funnel, where the funnel is largest, right? Well, who's at the top? Well, the Defense Department. Defense Department never gets cut. Almost never. Never. They take a very large chunk of that federal budget. And so by the time that federal budget ultimately gets down to the USDA and like organizations and departments, we're at the spout of the funnel, which makes it difficult to do everything that needs to be done. So it's frustrating because I don't think there's a full appreciation for the breadth and importance of this department. But I think we've done what we can. We've used the tools that are available, and I would say that's something else I've learned. There is a tendency outside of USDA to think of the only thing that really matters is the Farm Bill. That is really important, but so is the budget. So is the Commodity Credit Corporation. And now so is the Inflation Reduction Act and the infrastructure law that provided additional resources. Those four elements need to work collaboratively and in a comprehensive way to create the level of support and assistance and investment that's necessary to make sure that we do right by rural places. If you just focus on the Farm Bill, well, you're focusing on just a piece of what's necessary. Because if you underfund the budget significantly, then you don't have the capacity to implement the Farm Bill well. If you limit CCC, you don't have the ability to be creative when there are needs and gaps by virtue of the Farm Bill or by virtue of the budget that have to be met, like emergency circumstances and situations that occur seemingly on a daily basis here.
And if you could go back to that time in 2009 when you entered this building as Ag Secretary for the first time, what advice would you give your former self?
Well, let me answer the second part first. I would encourage folks who are interested in positions at USDA or positions within individual states that are akin to what we do at USDA, to really understand and appreciate rural people in rural places, to better understand the extent of contribution that is made by rural people in rural places to this country, and be able to articulate to the non-rural folks why it's important for them to see investment in rural places and rural people. And I mentioned a number of them. I mean, where does your food come from? Where does your water come from? Where does your energy come from? Where do the people who defend you come from? Where do you go when you want to get away from it all? Why aren't you investing in a place that provides all of that? And why aren't you making sure that people that want to be part of all of that continue to be part of all of that? So I would say it's important, I think, for people to be advocates. I think it's important for them to understand the full breadth of contribution that rural places make, and to make sure that they are that they articulate that and message it and find ways to educate those who don't live, work, or raise their families in rural places about the importance of it. You know, it's difficult to look back and ask yourself, well, you know, what advice would you give to yourself if you were starting this job over again? I think one piece of advice is to understand that and this is very technical, but to understand the dynamic between people who work at USDA as a career versus people who work at USDA based on a political appointment. So you have two classes of people, two groups of people that basically run this place. You've got the career people and you've got the political people. Now, the political people are the secretaries and the undersecretaries, the administrators, and those folks. the chiefs of staff, all of those folks. There is a tendency for folks who are political to want to come in, and they are fresh, they are full of energy, and they have no idea how difficult it's going to be because they think that they can just do stuff. But you just can't do stuff. I came in here thinking, well, when Congress appropriates money, we get to invest those resources. Well, it turns out that's not the case. You can't invest it until OMB, the Office of Budget Management, allow you to invest it. Well, gosh, that's frustrating because they don't give you the money. They dole it out, sort of like a parent and a child. Here's your allowance every quarter. This is what you can spend. So that's a process that you have to go through. You can't just do a rule. You got to circulate that rule among all your sister agencies, and they all have ideas and thoughts about it. Well, that's a cumbersome process and difficult process. So you're excited about this. You're ready to go. You want to do a lot. And then you come in and you say, let's do this and this and this, and let's do it right away. The career folks who've been here forever and know the system and know the process and know that you have to prioritize and know that some things take longer than others, well, they have to provide advice to you. You have to be open to it. You have to understand that you're a sprinter if you're a political person. They are marathoners, okay? And you need to respect it. You need to listen to them. You need to figure out ways in which you can encourage them to be part of the process of formulating policies and ideas because they are the ones who are going to have to implement. They're the ones who are going to have to carry the ball down the field through the interagency process or through the OMB process or through the congressional process. And so if they're with you, if they understand your direction and you brought them along, well, then things go a lot smoother. But if you try to basically force something, then what you could potentially end up is having friction. And friction in a department means that you don't get done what you want to get done. So perhaps the advice I would give to myself would be understand and respect the people that have worked here for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. They've seen a lot, and maybe they've seen it all. And maybe this new idea that you have isn't so new after all. Maybe it's been tried before. Maybe it's failed before. Maybe they know why it's failed. Maybe they know how you could prevent it from failing the next time. So I think it's important to have that understanding of the experience. And I think there's a tendency to want to, some folks want to just basically reduce the workforce. Well, you can do that. But when that career person goes out the door, all that experience, all that knowledge, all that wisdom goes out the door too.
And for this last question, I'll give you the open mic. Many folks in agriculture, journalism, politics, and every sphere will try to define your legacy as you leave office as the second longest serving agriculture secretary in the country's history. I'll give you the open mic here. What should they be writing or saying about you and saying about your legacy?
That I had an incredibly high respect for people who live, work, and raise their families in rural places. That I worked every single day to expand economic opportunity so that discussion at the coffee table could be about how the farm could succeed to the next generation and not how it was get big or get out. I would hope that people would see that this is an administration that did right by the nutrition programs and sought for ways in which those who were struggling could be helped. I would hope that they would see that we've created a new set of opportunities. I think if anything, it's about opportunities. We've expanded opportunities. Opportunities to be small or mid-sized and stay in business. Opportunities to get help and assistance so that you can eat better and your family can eat better. Opportunities to make sure that our food's safer. Opportunities to ensure that our forests continue to be the jewel that they are. I have a hard time defining legacy because I don't think in those terms. I just see a problem and I try to solve it. And the problem I've seen is that too few people are benefiting from the current system. And it's important for everybody to benefit, not the few, but the many. So that's not a particularly articulate articulation of a legacy, but I know this. I walk out of this place knowing that I gave it my all. And I walk out of this place knowing that we made a difference. And I think things are better than they were when I came in many, many, many respects. And that's all you can ask for.